want to remind everybody where we are, quickly resetting the room. You are in the Breakfast with Champions Millionaire Breakfast Club, and this website, bwcdaily.com, is where everybody should be going to make sure you are getting the notes from the segments that you may have missed, from the segments that you caught but maybe you want to replay, or the segments that maybe you don't even know exist, but if you knew about them, you'd be checking them out. So make sure you're going to bwcdaily.com so you know everything that's going on in the Breakfast with Champions world, any updates, any changes, any schedule notes, all of that stuff is happening again at bwcdaily.com. So I'm trying to get this tripod set the way that it's supposed to be. But anyway, just to introduce myself, for those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of 33 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks, and I created this whole brand called Work on Your Game, which very simply, here's what we do here at Work on Your Game. We take the mental tools and the strategies to help athletes get to the top 1% in the sports world. And what I've done is translated those tools over from the sports world to the business world to help professionals like yourselves. What's going on Instagram? Good morning to you all over there. Help professionals like yourselves. Number 1, perform at a higher level. That means you are giving more value to more people. Number 2, to make sure that you are more consistent in your efforts and your outputs, because a professional must be consistent in what they do. That's the only reason anybody will pay you. And number 3, so you can make more money. I mean, the reason that we're in business is to make money, right? Nobody gets in business just to do it for fun. You get in business to make money. So those are the 3 things that we aim to do here, with the caveat, by the way, the things we do here at Work on Your Game are not designed necessarily to make you feel good, even though you may feel good in the process. The purpose here is to help you do good. And sometimes you might have to feel a little bit uncomfortable in order to get to where you want to go. So that's what we do here at Work on Your Game. Now, today's topic, we're going to be talking about content. We're going to talk about content, and it actually goes along the lines of what you heard of Ramon talking about a little bit earlier today. I think earlier this morning, I jumped into Stars Tina's session. She was talking a little bit about content and business mistakes. And we're doing content right now. So whether you are watching this live on video, whether you can see me on Facebook or you can see me on Instagram, shout out to all you who are watching me on those platforms, or if you are listening to me via audio on Breakfast with Comment here on Instagram while I'm talking. We are all in the content. You're either consuming it or you're creating it. And hopefully you're creating more than you're consuming. I'll give you all that as a little tip. That's a free one. It's not even part of my points here today. But we're going to talk about basically 2 subjects when it comes to content. Number 1, I'm going to make a case for why you need to be creating more content than what you are creating right now. And number 2, I'm going to tell you the biggest mistakes you are making with content. And I'm going to break that up between over this next 60 minutes. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to leave some time, hopefully. I always aim for that. Leave some time for some engagement and conversation at least here on Clubhouse. And those of you who are on Facebook or on Instagram, y'all know how you can reach me directly if you don't get a direct response from me while I am live. Now, when it comes to content, I'm going to define content simply as free information that is shared on the internet. That's what we'll call content. Free information. It doesn't actually have to be information. It can be entertainment, anything that you put out on the internet that you give away for free. You're not charging people money for it. And today, I'm going to tell you why, if you are doing any form of business online, you want to have more content in the game. I think I heard Ramon mention during his segment, I didn't catch all of it, but I heard a part of it where he said he realized that he needed to send more emails. He needed to do more email marketing. And when it comes to content, this is what I'm about to talk about. I'm about to sell you all on that concept, whether that content is through your social media platforms, whether it's something you're sending directly to your audience, i.e. email, or if you have a text messaging community, which I have. If you're not in my text messaging community, it is linked in my bio on whatever platform you watch me on. My number is just 305-384-6894. If you just text me at that number, you can get that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my pin link to that. So any of you want to get my daily motivation text message, you can just text me at this number. That should work. All right, there it is. And here's the thing. When it comes to content, you want to be out there consistently for several reasons. And that's what I'm going to get into in my points here today. So let's get right to it. Number one reason why you want to make more content, folks, is because content makes you findable and discoverable. This is what you need to be. And I think this is one of the last points that Ramon made in his marathon segment that he did this morning when he was pitching or telling you about, I won't even say he was pitching it, but he was telling you about his coaching program that he's offering is that there are a lot of talented, skilled people out there in the space, whether you are coaching, you're a speaker, you're an author, you're a personal trainer, you're a therapist, you're a whatever it is that you do that you want to sell as an entrepreneur. The biggest challenge that many people have, at least according to what I heard Ramon say, is that they are simply not known. Nobody knows who you are. Any of you who is on my email list, I just sent an email out yesterday. Let me see what the title of that email was. So just so you all have a feel that we are, Ramon and I are on similar pages with a lot of these things that we talk about. Yesterday, I sent an email out that said, here was the headline, why you're a nobody with no friends. And one of the points of that email, one of the main ideas I was communicating through that email was that a lot of people have a lot of skill and a lot of ability, but simply are not known. Nobody actually knows who you are. You can't be found because you're not anywhere to be discovered. Nobody can find you even if they were looking for you. You got to be findable and discoverable. And the great thing about what the internet, is specifically social media, does is it allows us to be findable. This is the number one reason why you create content. You are not creating content just to say that you did it, even though you could do that. And there are some benefits to doing that, actually. I'm going to tell you about that in a second. But you create content so that the people who would possibly buy from you, people who would possibly be your clients and your customers or your audience members or your fans or your whatever it is you're trying to get out of your business, they actually can discover you. Most of you, I would guess, most of you do not get your clients and customers because somebody just knows who you are from wherever and they just go looking for you on the internet. Most of the time, at least, and I'll speak from my own personal experience, many of the people who become my clients and customers, whether they're high ticket clients in a coaching program, something like that, whether they attend a live event, or they are someone who even buys something like a book, and I just ask them to cover the shipping, they pay $9.95. Most of the time, those people come into my world not because they went on the internet and said, oh, I got to find Dre Baldwin. Let me go find Dre Baldwin and see what he's doing and buy whatever he's selling. That usually is not what happened. Most of the time when I'm talking to people and I ask them, hey, how'd you find out about me? How do you know about me? And they'll say, well, Dre, I used to play basketball. So I used to watch your basketball videos back in the day. They didn't, and even the basketball players, they didn't come to the internet looking for me. They came to the internet looking for basketball. I just happened to be serving it. You see what I'm saying? So I made myself findable and discoverable because I was where those people were looking. And then there'll be other people who will say, well, Dre, you know what? I knew I needed to get help with my mindset. So I went in the podcast app and I looked up mindset, or I looked up discipline, or I looked up confidence, and your podcast popped up. I started listening to it. I liked it. And I got into your text community. And that's how I ended up following you. That happens. Or somebody will say, well, I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw some guy with an advertisement and he was talking about a book that was about showing up every day, even when you don't feel like it. That's my book, The Third Day. I went and ordered the book, got on your email list, and that's how I ended up finding you. The whole point is, I'm not telling you any of those things to impress you, but to impress, well, actually, I'm trying to impress you a little bit. But I'm telling you that to impress upon you that the whole point of creating content is to make yourself findable so that when those 8 billion people on the planet, or the 4 or 5 billion who are using social media every day, or the internet period every single day, sees you, or they go looking, they see you. All right. And thank you, Elias, over there on Facebook. I appreciate the comment. This is one reason that you create content. This is the number one reason. The more content that you have out there, the easier it will be for someone to find you if they were to go looking for your thing, whatever your thing happens to be. And keep in mind, folks, most of the time, again, maybe some of you are more famous than I am. I'm not that famous, but any of you who's more known than me, maybe you have people who just go search for you. They just go looking up your name because they know who you are. And I will give you a rule of thumb. If you haven't been on TV regularly, I'm talking about TV, like the thing with the screen, the remote control, not the internet, but the TV. If you have not regularly been on TV, you probably don't have a bunch of people going looking for you by name. Now, you can get known by word of mouth from friends and things like that, and you can build a huge audience on the internet. But usually people are looking for a subject. You just want to be a person who's talking about that thing so that they can find you. 99% of the people who I talk to, when I ask them, how'd you find out about me? They did not go looking for me by name. They went looking for the thing. I happened to be talking about the thing. They liked it, and they stayed in my world, or they came into my world. So keep in mind, and I think I heard Tina talk about this earlier today, is that the top search engines in the world, number one is Google, number two is YouTube, and Google owns YouTube. So Google basically owns all the searching. Everyone who's listening to this right now, actually, let me ask this question. I want you to put a 1 in the chat if you have in the last year. Put a 1 in the chat if you have in the last year gone on Google and typed in your own name just to see what comes up. If you have done that, go into the chat right now and put a 1 in the chat. If you have Googled yourself to see what comes up in the search. If you're an entrepreneur selling things on the internet, whether you're doing it as a side hustle or your full-time business, you need to do this. If you have not done this and you're not putting a 1 in it, put a 0 in the chat if you've never done this before. Put a 1 if you have. If you have Googled yourself, just your name, not your business name, not your company name, just your name, whatever name people know you by. All right, so my name is Dre Baldwin. So if I go on Google and type in Dre Baldwin, then I can see what's coming up. You should go on the internet and Google yourself. All right, so I see a lot of 1s coming up in the chat. All right, so everybody's already done this? Okay. You need to Google yourself and see what's coming up. And ideally, you own that entire first page. You should own the entire first page on Google for your name. Now, some of you are lucky enough where your name is unique enough that there are not too many other people with your same name. If you have the trouble of someone else having a similar name to you, then you can either figure out maybe a different spelling of your name, or maybe you can shorten your name, go with a different version of your name, something so that you can own that space. But you need to own the first page on Google for your name, or DuckDuckGo or Bing or whatever search engine you prefer. Definitely Google, because most people go to Google. Most people default to Google. And since YouTube is the #2 search engine in the world, just as a side note, I'm not going to talk specifically about certain platforms today. I would suggest, since it's the #2 search engine in the world, you might want to get on YouTube. You might want to get on YouTube just for that reason. What's going on, Carrie, over there on Instagram? So this is about being findable and discoverable. Because think about this. Think about this, folks. When somebody first hears about you, first time they hear about you, never heard of you before, somebody mentioned your name, maybe they're at a conference and they say, well, you know what, I need to learn more about topic XYZ. So I'm looking on the stage on Clubhouse, and the person I see next to me is TM. Good morning, brother. And I see on his page says learn, speak, show, improve on his bio. So let's say somebody wants to learn, speak, show, improve. They're at an event, but they never heard of TM, but somebody sitting next to them has heard of TM. They say, oh, you need to look up this dude named TM Hyman. Well, guess what that person's going to do? What's the first thing they're going to do? Anybody got an answer? Put it in the chat. What's the first thing they're going to do? Actually, I already told you. I already gave it away. They're going to Google you. Or they're going to Google TM. Or if I mention, hey, you need to go check out Dr. Jeannie, Dr. Jeannie says she is the genius creator and a speaker strategist. So if I'm a speaker and I need some strategy and somebody says you need to go talk to Dr. Jeannie, I say, who's Dr. Jeannie? Well, I'm going to go on Google and I'm going to see what Google has to say about Dr. Jeannie. That's the first thing anybody's going to do when they hear about you, is they're going to Google you. So you need to see what Google's saying about you. And if you don't like it, you need to change it. And if you need some help with that, well, there's probably someone who knows SEO who can help you with that and can get that outcome to look the way that you want it to look. Keeping in mind, YouTube is one of the best places to start because Google owns YouTube. So they prioritize things that are published on YouTube over things that are published by Mr. Zuckerberg's platforms. Again, that's just a side tip. Give you that one for free. It's not even part of my overall topic here today. So let me tell you what you don't want to happen when somebody hears your name. All right, here's what you don't want. Is you don't want someone to go look you up and they find nothing, or even worse, they find other people with the same name and they're confused as to which one is you, and they don't know where to find you. They can't find any information on you, because keep in mind, folks, confused people don't ask questions. Many of you might think that. Many of you, when you're confused, you ask questions to get clarity and get information. But we who are listening to this right now, everybody, I don't care, Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, we're in the minority. We're the 2%. You know what 98% of people in life do when they are confused? They do absolutely nothing. When people are confused, they do nothing. So if I tell someone your name, they go Google you, they can't find anything, they're not going to go and look harder to find you. No, they're just going to go find someone else who they can find information about, who they are clear on what this person is and how they can work with them, and they're going to go work with that person. Even if that person is significantly worse than you in terms of what they can deliver. Why? Because they're easier to find. People are not going to work that hard to go find you. You need to make it easy for them to find you. All right, so this is what you don't want happening. Okay, so Google yourself, see what you see, and ask yourself the following question. Do the results that you see on Google help your cause, or do they hurt your cause? Now, it should be help your cause if the things that come up on Google are platforms that you control. It should be your website or websites if you have more than one. It should be your social media platforms, which you control and you put all the content on there, your videos that you put out if you have any, or any interviews that you've done where someone spoke highly of you, or if you appear on a platform that has a lot of internet juice. For example, if you've spoken on a TED stage, I know we have a lot of TED speakers who are here in BWC, and you're on that TEDx website, that probably will come up. Or if you've spoken at a college or you've spoken at some big company and they had a page on their website about the fact that you spoke there, that's probably going to come up in the search results. Or you've been interviewed by someone with a pretty large platform, maybe larger than yours, that'll come up in the search results. Every search result on Google should make you look good. And if there are any that make you look bad, you need to create more stuff that makes you look good so you can bury the stuff that makes you look bad. You get what I'm saying? And you get to judge what's good or bad. So if you Google, when I Google myself, I see my books, photos, websites, about pages, interviews I've done, websites where I sell things, podcasts. That's the kind of stuff you want to see on your first page. But this only happens, folks, when you have enough high quality content such that the search engines believe your name is significant enough to show these things. And again, significant is not about you compared to the rest of the world, it's you compared to everybody else with your name. All right, so that's all. You don't have to beat everybody. It's kind of like the old parable. If you're out in the woods and a bear starts chasing you, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just got to be faster than the person with you. All right, you just got to be the best and most significant person with that name. And if you're the only one with that name, well, now you just got to take that. Basically, it's being served up on a platter, softball served up on a platter. You just got to knock it out the park by putting good content out there such that Google prioritizes your stuff when anyone looks up that string being your first name and your last name. Everybody got that? Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the case for, first, we're talking about how to create more content or why you should create more content. Number 2 is content helps you master your voice. Let me say that more accurately. The creation of content helps you master your voice. The more content you create, the better you get at mastering your voice and what you want to say, how you want to say it, what you want to put out, and who you want to share it with. So as I talked about before, you heard me talk about communication here many times on all of these platforms where I'm live right now. One of the key ways you get better at communicating is by actually doing it, right? Through writing, speaking, and conversing. And as you create more content, you'll get better at understanding how you want to say things, what you want to say, what your pet topics are, how you describe and talk about those topics, and also how you talk about yourself. At the same time, you will let your audience, your main audience, whoever that's going to be, your ideal audience, you'll let them self-identify, because they'll see what you're talking about, they'll hear what you're talking about, and they'll get to decide, you know what, I love when you talk about this topic. I like the way that you talked about this thing. I like the fact that you kept it real on this subject. I like the fact that you said this thing that I've been thinking about and I haven't heard anybody say it, but you're the one who finally said it. And so sometimes you have to try different subject matters out to find out what is your ideal audience responding to, and is that the audience that you want? Maybe it's not. Maybe you need a different audience, because there are certain topics that I could go on the internet and talk about right now if I wanted to, but do I want the people that subject would attract in my audience? If the answer is yes, then I talk about it. If the answer is no, then I leave that subject alone. So you have to make strategic decisions about this, because there are certain topics that can attract a whole lot of people. Question is, do you want those people? And this is a choice that you have to make, because this is what your business is going to be built around. And keep in mind that it's not just what you say in your content, is also how you say it. It's the confidence that you project when you communicate. And again, remember that YouTube is the second biggest search engine on the planet. And YouTube means video, meaning people can see you as well as hear you. The confidence you project matters a lot. Remember that most communication is nonverbal, folks. And people make decisions as to whether or not to move forward with you. They say, most of us think that we make decisions about other people based on our logical assessment of what they're doing, how we feel about the things that they're saying. That's not really how we make decisions. We make decisions based on all the nonverbal factors, everything other than the words. How people say things, which is based on how someone presents themselves, how you're dressed, how you look, how you sound. Do you look like you believe what you're actually saying? Do you look like you actually know what you're talking about? Even if you don't know what you're talking about, do you sound like you know what you're talking about? All of those things are how people make decisions about other people. That's how you make decisions about people. That's how people make decisions about you. This is all nonverbal, subconscious decision making that we all make in very short instances. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Blink that's all about this, and there are many others. But this is all based on the way that you project and the way that you present yourself. So this is all based on how much practice you have in actually saying these things. So what your content, the content that you put out, it basically becomes a practice ground, or sort of, I did a episode of my podcast about why you need a sandbox. Basically, you use content as a sandbox. And the more content you put out, the more you can practice different stuff. So for example, I have a podcast that comes out every single day. It's a solo show. I don't have guests. It's about 20, 30 minutes every single day. We got 2,500 episodes on that platform. And I use that as a sandbox for the things that I want to go deeper on, because I'll put some material out, and basically how I feel about talking about it, how the audience responds to it, tells me, should I talk about this topic more? Did I like this topic? I didn't really like that one that much, or that one that wasn't that fun to talk about. I couldn't really come up with enough material really to flesh this one out the way I wanted to, and I'll throw that topic away. But if it's one that I really like and I get a good response from it, then I'll talk more about that. But I use that as a sandbox, as a way to test things out, to try things out. And this is the good thing about content. It's completely free. Therefore, the people in your audience, even if they don't like something that you put out, well, they have no leg to stand on to complain, because what they pay for it. Right? You're putting it out for free. So they can't complain that they don't like your content. If someone doesn't like your content, well, they can just go to the next person or the next channel or the next person they're following and get something that they do like. Or they can just say, oh, you know what? I'll skip that topic. I don't like this one, but I'll wait for the next one to come out tomorrow. I know for a fact that most of the people in my audience who listen to, for example, my podcast, don't listen to every single episode that comes out. There are a few people who do, but not everybody listens to every single episode. There's a lot of material. They'll look around at the titles and they'll see one that they like. And over the course of 10 days, they might listen to 7 and skip the other 3, because those 3 are just talking about stuff they're not interested in. That's fine. I'm fine with that. You're using content as a sandbox to test things out, because the things that you create as content, when you find the ones that really hit, the ones that really resonate with the right audience that you're interested in serving, those things can eventually move on to become your paid products. So every book that I have, if you're watching on video now, you can see my bookshelf behind me. And if you've heard me introduce myself, I've written a bunch of books. Every book that I've written started as some free content. There was something I put out as free content. I got a solid response from it, and people said, man, that's a really good topic. I'm glad you talked about that. I wanted to learn more about that. And I decided, you know what, let me make something that people can pay for out of this, that has a little bit longer shelf life than just a piece of content. Because we know content comes and goes, right? Those of you who are content creators, you put out some content today, a month from now, that's quote unquote old content. But something like a book doesn't really become old, or something like a course or a coaching program or an event is different, because events end. But those kind of things don't really become old. So this is why you use your content, again, as a testing ground, a kind of a breeding ground, so to speak, a petri dish for what you're going to charge for later on in your career, depending on how fast or slowly you move. So use content as your sandbox. And again, people can't complain because they're not paying for it. Number 3, we're talking today, a case for creating more content. The right content done in volume, this is key, helps you own a subject or own an approach. If you want to own a topic, here's the first thing that you can get started on. Create as much content as possible around that subject, such that when someone goes online, they've never heard of you before, and they look up that subject, all they see is you. If you take one thing from this first half of this segment here today, this is it. Own a subject. And the reason I'm giving you this one is because even though anyone can do this, most people won't do it. So whoever decides to do this on whatever your subject matter happens to be, you can own that subject, and you don't even have to be the best at it. I mean, and best is very subjective, but you can own the subject simply because you're the person that everybody sees. You're the person that everyone knows when that subject comes up. For example, is Tony Robbins the best motivational speaker in the world? We don't know. But subjectively, if you ask somebody, a random person, name a motivational speaker, his name will probably come up more often than anyone else's. Why? Because he's the most known person. He has a lot of material out there because he's been in a lot of spaces. Is Dr. Phil the best therapist? We don't know. But he's the most known therapist. Is Oprah the best interviewer? We don't know. But she's the most known person. You can own a subject. So for example, I'll use myself as an example. So between 2005 and 2015, if you went on YouTube or Google and you looked up anything that had to do with learning how to play basketball between 2005 and 2015, you had no choice but to see my name. Guaranteed. Is the reason why that even to this day, even though I have not played basketball in 8 years, people still approach me and tell me how they remember watching my basketball videos back in the day. I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, I was in my neighborhood. I usually take a nice long walk on Sunday mornings. And I went to this breakfast buffet place that I go every Sunday. And I didn't have a suit on yesterday. I had on shorts and a t-shirt. So this guy could see these tattoos on my arms. And he was looking at the tattoos and he saw this. I have a tattoo on my right arm that says "Work on your game." And I guess he assumed that I was an athlete. So he said, "Well, what sport did you play?" I didn't tell him I was an athlete, but he said, "What sport did you play?" I said, "I played basketball." And he was like he was a worker. He was a server. He was like getting the dirty dish trays and taking them to the back because this is a buffet. And I'm talking to him. He's like, "Oh, where'd you play?" And I said, "Well, I played overseas for these years." He was asking me what countries I played in. And then he was saying, then I was telling him, yeah, I used to make all these videos on YouTube back in the day. So some people know me from that. Now, his coworker who was working the register, I had just paid at the register and I hadn't even gotten my food tray yet because this guy is talking to me. His coworker comes from behind the counter and he kind of jumps in our conversation. He says, "Man, I knew when you came up to the register, I knew you from somewhere." And he said, "Man, when I was in high school, I used to watch your videos all the time." This just happened yesterday morning. And he was, I believe, 25 or 26 years old. His name was George, and the other guy's name was Matt. And he was telling me, "Man, when I was in high school," so we're talking, what 10 years ago? And I guess maybe I guess I look a little bit different. So he didn't recognize me immediately, but he said, I knew you from somewhere." And we got to talking and I was talking to both of them. And the whole point is, again, I'm not telling you this to impress you, but to impress upon you. When it came to editing basketball videos, if any of you has followed me on YouTube or ever seen any of my videos on YouTube, those videos are not edited. I don't edit anything. When I record a video and put it on YouTube, and I have 8,000 videos on YouTube to this very day, probably closer to 9,000 now. I don't edit any of my videos. I just record it and I put it up there. All right, however it is, it is. I'm going to hire somebody to handle my editing at some point, but I don't do any editing. I'm not a video editor. I hate editing video, as a matter of fact. But between 2005 and 2015, I put up a video on YouTube every single day. And there were points where I was putting up 2, 3, 4 videos a day. Not because I was the best basketball player in the world. Definitely because I definitely was not the best video editor in the world, but I put up more volume of material than anyone. So if you looked up basketball material, you had no choice but to see and know my name back then. And to this day, I'll do speaking gigs. For example, I was speaking in Orlando at the Sandler conference last Friday, 2 Fridays ago. And these are adults. These are grown men and women who work in the sales space. But a few people came up to me after I got off stage and they said, "Well, I heard you talking and you were talking about playing basketball and things like that." Because I mentioned in my speeches how I played barely played in high school and walked on playing college and played overseas, etc. And I had a few people say to me, "Well, Dre, while you were talking, I reached out to my son or my daughter," because these are people who have teenage kids or they have kids in their early 20s, and said, "Hey, I'm at this event and there's this guy speaking. He used to play basketball and he has some good stuff," because they just like the stuff I'm talking about. They think their kids may be able to relate. And they say, "Well, what's the guy's name?" And they say my name. And every time I speak, I had this happen. An adult who's my age, like let's say 40 and up, will come to me and say, "Hey, I told my son or my daughter that I was at this event and I saw you speaking and they knew who you were." It happens every single time. And again, I'm not telling you that to impress you, but to impress upon you. The reason why I was known is not because I was the best player in the world, not because I was the best editor in the world, not because I have the best content necessarily. My content's pretty good. It may not be the best subjectively. It's because I was the easiest to find. You couldn't not see my name if you looked up that title, that topic. Every player who was playing in that decade saw me and knew who I was, even if you didn't like me. All right. So during that time period, here's the point. I owned that subject matter. And you can own your subject matter if you put out enough content on that topic. And it doesn't have to be on video. It can be written material, and you can get the SEO juice from Google through that. It can be audio material. Audio is a little bit harder to index, at least as of today. But I believe, and any of you who follows technology, I think over the next 10 years, audio will start indexing a lot better than it is right now. In other words, just to make this simple for y'all to understand, Google cannot index every word that's being said in an audio file, at least not very well, and not as well as it can do written material or even video, because video is audio too when people are speaking. So for example, let's look at, if you write an article, Google can look at every single word in context and understand it. That's why written material does very well for SEO. But a YouTube video, for example, if I do a 10-minute YouTube video, or just take this audio that I'm doing right now, and we were to download this and upload it somewhere where people can listen to it, Google is not that proficient right now at looking through and listening to everything that I say and converting it into text and weighing it the same that it would a written article. Everybody follow what I'm saying? And when Google gets better at that, or all search engines, and AI is on its way to doing this, when it gets better at doing that, then all your video and written material will start to index the same way that a written material does. And by index, for those of you who don't understand that lingo, just means, can Google understand what you said and have it be relevant in search engines based on the subject matter? So right now, if someone was to Google, why should you put out a lot of content? This audio file would not come up in the search results simply because Google can't read what I'm saying. But in the next 10 years, and it probably won't take that long, it will be able to do that. So all of you who are creating a lot of video and audio material, it'll start paying you back in the future. That's why you need to be investing in this stuff right now. And if you're a writer, you should still be writing, because written material still matters, and people believe what they read more than they believe what they hear and what they see, by the way. So all that said, that's a side note to this point. Your ownership can be on a certain approach. Your ownership does not necessarily have to be on a subject matter. It can just be, again, owning your name. It can be owning a topic. It can be owning a certain approach. For example, you're the person who's like the real talk person. You just say what needs to be said on subjects that nobody wants to talk about. So you can talk about all different topics, but you talk about them in a certain way so that people know that that way of speaking is the thing that you own. That's a little bit harder to own, but all of these areas are ownable, if you get what I'm saying. So you don't have to have ownership of a topic. You don't have to have ownership of an approach, but you want to own something. The most important thing you need to own is your name. You want to have your brand burned into the mind of your audience. So when someone thinks of you, they think of a certain approach or certain things that they want. Or when someone thinks of certain things, they think of you, or one or the other. All a brand is the image or the idea that people have of you and what you're about and how they would describe you to someone who has never heard of you before. That's what a brand is. What would somebody say about you when you're not in the room? That's your brand. And if you don't like what's being said about you when you're not in the room, then it's your job to change that conversation by putting out material that changes what people are saying about you. And again, if somebody decides to say something bad about you that you don't control, well, you got to put out enough good stuff about you that it buries the bad stuff, whatever that bad stuff, quote unquote, may be. So for the people who are going to buy from you, you got to own real estate in their mind. All right. People had to be thinking about you in order to give you money. I don't think there's ever been a situation someone gave someone money without thinking about them. If they did, that was probably some kind of crime that was being committed. Now, let's move on to the second part of what I'm going to talk about here today, and then we'll open it up for discussion after the second part, which is the top 3 biggest content mistakes that you are making as a content creator, brand owner, entrepreneur, etc. These are the biggest mistakes that you are making that is costing you in your business. Now, in the past, I've talked about the 3 most important areas for marketing yourself on the internet. 3 areas in terms of speed, from fastest to slowest, also most expensive to cheapest, are number 1, advertising, number 2, collaboration, number 3, content. And today we're focusing on content. Advertising is when you spend money for attention. Collaboration is when you borrow another person's audience. And content is when you put out your own stuff. Now, content is the slowest to, quote unquote, turn over into stuff because you're not immediately demanding anyone do anything, because you can put out content and not actually offer anything. You could make an offer, but it doesn't necessarily have to be urgent. It doesn't have to be time sensitive. Whereas when you advertise, often when someone's advertising, they're looking for you to buy something right now, or at least make a decision right now in a general sense. But let's get into my points here. And we're talking the 3 biggest content mistakes people are making. Number 1 is you are inconsistent. That's one word. Made it sound like 3. Inconsistency. Consistency serves you in content creating in several ways. First of all, you get good at crafting ideas. You get good at figuring out what you want to say and how you want to say it. You get good at your process for content creation. I talk to many people who want to create more content, and one of the reasons that they don't create content is because you don't have a process. I know every time that I get on BWC, I know exactly how I set things up. I got my tripods ready. I have my iPad with my notes or whatever I want to talk about. If I'm going to go live on video as well, I got another tripod for my Instagram, another computer that I use for my Facebook. I'm going to need another phone if I'm going to do Twitter Spaces. There's one more space that I'm not on. That's Twitter. While I'm doing these, but I have a process. When I record episodes for my podcast, there's a process. I know I got to have my microphone ready. I got my notes ready. I got my video recorded ready. I got my audio recording ready. I have a process so that I can do it over and over and over again. You want to mass produce anything, folks, you need a system. This is not something that you do randomly. So one thing that hurts people's consistency is that there's no system. It's not that you don't want to be consistent. It's not that you don't have the desire to achieve an outcome. It's just that you don't have a process for being consistent. When you have a process for consistency, it's much easier to be consistent. And what I tell people is that consistency is a form of discipline. And I talk to and hear from people often whose challenge is they want to be more disciplined, or they're not as disciplined as they want to be. And people say to me, well, Dre, my biggest challenge is I want to be more consistent. I want to be more disciplined. I understand. That's a good thing to want to be. Any discipline challenge you have is actually a structural challenge. Your discipline challenge is not a mindset challenge. Your discipline challenge is a structural challenge. In other words, when you have the right structure in place, it's easy to be disciplined. When you have no structure, it's very hard to be disciplined. So when you put the right structure in and you have a structure for what you're going to do, then the discipline is a byproduct of the structure. Everybody get what I'm saying here? So if you want to be more consistent in creating content, what you need to do is come up with a process for how you create your content so that you can do it over and over and over again. And it's very little friction for you to create content. Therefore, it's easier for you to do it. Human beings, all of us by nature, are lazy. We are designed to conserve energy. That's from back in the caveman days when we had to save energy just in case a rival caveman or a saber-toothed tiger came along. We needed to save our energy so we could run away or we could fight. So human beings, and this is still wired in us, we are by nature lazy. So how do people produce a whole lot? How do people get a lot done? What about these people who are always doing stuff, Dre? What about them? Let me tell you what they're doing that you may not be doing. They have structure in place that makes it easy for them to get so much done. It's not that they are just pushing through the friction better than you are. No, they reduce friction by having structure in place so that they don't have to fight through the friction. See, many of you are trying to fight the wrong battle. And this is based on asking yourself the wrong question. I talk about this a lot. When you ask yourself the wrong question, which is, how do I fight through the friction and get more done? That's the wrong question. The better question is, how do I remove the friction so it's easy for me to get stuff done because I'm naturally lazy. So you got to work with your own human nature. And when you understand these things, it's much easier to come up with much better questions, and it's much easier to come up with answers, and then it's easier to execute. If everybody following what I'm saying with that point, that's how you get over the inconsistency. So when it comes to content, going back to content here, when you are consistent with your content, it serves your audience as well, because your audience gets to know you. They get to know that you exist. They get to decide if they like you. Because the more consistent you are, the better they get a feel for who you are and what you're about. They can decide more quickly if they like you or if they don't. And every time you put out an article or a video, an episode, a segment, it draws them further into their relationship with you. You want people in your audience to feel like they know you without ever meeting you in person. That's what you want to do with your content. I want someone to see me at the mall and be like, man, I feel like I know you, even though this is my first time ever meeting you in person. I want someone to get on a Zoom call with me and say that. I want someone to email me or text me or DM me and say something like that, based on the fact that they have consumed enough of my content and they get enough of a feel from my personality that they're like, damn, I feel like I know you, even though I don't actually know you. You can do that through content, but you got to be consistent enough. Again, the same way that you build a relationship with a person that you actually know. How? It's because you're around them enough. You're consuming enough of them. You're getting enough of a feel for how they are and what they're about and how they talk and their energies. You get a feel for that. You can get a feel for that through your smartphone, and you can give that to other people, but you got to be consistent. I mean, somebody only sees you once a month. Can you get a feel for them? Not really. So you got to be out there. If that's once per week, do it once per week. If it's once a day, be once per day. But whatever it is, you got to be out there. You got to be active. Again, findable and discoverable. Number 2. We're talking the biggest content mistakes that you are making. All right, here's the next one. And this is the one that is on top of inconsistency. This is the next biggest one. Your content is timid, bland, and boring. All 3. Timid, bland, and boring. Now, what makes content timid, bland, and boring? What do I mean? Why am I saying this? It is timid, bland, and boring where you're saying the same things that everybody else is saying, or you are saying something that anyone could say, and we wouldn't know the difference as to who it came from. I was talking to somebody last week. I can't remember who I was talking to. But anyway, I asked them the following question. I'm going to ask all of you this question. right, here's the question I want to pose to you. Think of what you do for a living. All right, think of your professional title. I don't mean like the way you describe it that makes you unique. I mean like what you do. So if you're a speaker, you're a coach, you're an author, you're a personal trainer, you're a physical therapist, you're a psychologist, whatever, a doctor. All right, here's my question. You're in a room with 1,000 other people who are in the exact same industry as you. All right, they do the same thing that you do. They have the same title that you have. You get called up to the stage. I hand you the microphone. Actually, before I hand you the microphone, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to say, okay, TM, okay, Christina, okay, Dora Maria, okay, Tina, okay, Michelle, Natasha, Kim, Ramona, Nova, Dami, Emerald, Robert, Melanie. Here's the question. This is one at a time. I'm asking you this question. Tell me what you do in such a way, or tell me something about you and what you do professionally in such a way that no one else in this room, mind you, they're all your peers, that no one else in this room can say. That's the question that I would ask you, and I would hand you the mic. And if you cannot answer that question, and you are not answering it in the content that you put out, your content is probably timid, bland, and boring. What differentiates you from anyone else who does the same thing that you do, is offering a similar product or service, and is serving similar clients? What can you say about you that they can't say about them? This is an important question that you should be answering. You don't have to answer this with one video or one article. You should be answering this every single time you hit the publish button. When someone, and I've asked this question to people in my audience, when you see that Dre Baldwin posted a new video, you see that Dre sent you a new email, what are you expecting to get in that video or email that you would not get from anybody else's video or email? And I asked them that question, and they give me an answer. And the answer to that question tells me a lot about what differentiates me in the eyes of my audience. I might think it's one thing, but they may say it's something different. Good news is that it was pretty aligned. What I thought it was pretty much what I was hearing. But are you saying the same thing that everybody else is saying? Are you saying the same thing that anybody else could say? I want you to look at your website, look at your bio, look at your about page, look at the last thing you published to the public, and say, if you took your name off of it and someone else in your line of work said the same thing and they just put their name on it, would anybody know that they were lying? When I can't see your position or your perspective or how your offer makes me see you, then you're playing it too safe. Maybe you're trying not to offend anyone. Maybe you don't want to be wrong. Maybe you don't want to stick your neck out. All right, this is the reason why you create content, folks, is not to be wrong or offend people or stick your neck out, but to find your voice. Your voice means what makes you unique from anyone else. How are you unique from anybody else in the space? You have to say something that isn't already being said. You have to talk how you're going to talk, and you got to find that unique angle. Now, you have to be frequent in doing this, more frequent than you think you should be, because if any of you think you're publishing too much, you're probably not publishing enough. Let me say that one again. If you think you are publishing too much, you are not publishing enough. If you have an email list and you only send emails once a week because you don't want to send too many emails to your audience, that is the wrong approach. When someone likes your material and they are possibly interested in what you're offering, there's no such thing as too much. For example, I'm on the email list of Nordstrom email list, because I bought suits from Nordstrom in the past. Nordstrom sends an email at least once a day. At least every single day, I've got an email from Nordstrom every day for the last, as long as I've been on that email, every single day. And not once have I bought anything from one of those emails that Nordstrom sends, but I do not unsubscribe. And I'm not annoyed by the fact that Nordstrom sends me an email every single day. You know why? Because I'm a customer. I don't mind a place that I have spent money telling me, hey, here's some more ways you can give us money. Why? Because in the future, I'm going to give them money again. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually I will give Nordstrom money again. So I don't mind them marketing and selling to me because I've given them money and I will happily give them money again. So someone who's on my email list, if they've given me money in the past, they don't mind me emailing them all the time. I email interviews on my email list. I send 5-6 emails a week. Sometimes I send emails every single day. This week I'll probably send an email every single day. You're on my email list, you will get an email from me every single day. So if you don't see one, check your spam folder. You just missed it. Why? Because number one, if you like my material and you like my approach and you like what I talk about, you'll be happy to get emails from me every day. Even if you don't click on the link or schedule a call or buy whatever I'm selling, doesn't matter. You'll take the emails because you like my approach. You know, eventually one day you will do something. You're just not going to do something today. That's all right. And number two, if you don't like my approach, if you don't like the fact that I'm emailing a lot, if you will never buy anything from me, guess what you're going to do? You're going to scroll to the bottom of the email, you're going to click the unsubscribe button, and it'll be over. Either way, I'm happy, because if you're not going to buy anything, then good. I don't want to keep spending money sending you emails. And if you do like my stuff, then keep reading, because eventually I'm going to say the right word and the right combination or the right phrase. I'm going to make the right offer at the right time when you're ready, and you're going to do something, whatever it is I'm asking you to do. So you need to be reaching out to your audience more often. You should assume that anything that you send out to your audience, anything you post on social media, assume that most of the people in your audience never even saw it, heard it, read it, watched it, even knew about it. You'd be surprised. Most people don't even know about the stuff that you put out. Whatever you put out yesterday, most of the people in your audience don't even know that you did it. They missed it. They didn't see it. They didn't catch the email. All right. Most people don't keep their inbox as clean as you keep yours. Most people don't read every email that they get. Most people don't even read every text message that they get. Assume that they didn't see it. So put it out again. I put the same message out multiple times, and very rarely do I get anyone who writes me back and complains, hey, Dre, you sent that one before. I might get one person who says that, even though I send the same message out multiple times all the time. Nobody ever complains and says, hey, Dre, you said that one already. Why? Because most people didn't notice the first one, or they didn't read the first one. So be consistent, and be more consistent than you think you need to be. All right, you got it? Point number 3. Last point here today. We are talking the biggest content mistakes that you are making. Number 3, you want your content to make you money directly. You want to publish something and then it makes you money. This is the wrong question. This is the wrong aim. Purpose of using social media, and the purpose of creating content on social media, is not to make you money, at least not directly. Purpose of using social media is to create awareness and to start to build relationships. That's the purpose of using social media. So it's called social media, interacting with other human beings. And you want to build awareness, get people to know that you exist. Then you want to take them to the next step. And ideally, your next step is to get them into your world, something that you have ownership and control over, i.e. your list. And all a list is, by the way, for those who don't know, it's someone who's given you permission to contact them directly, meaning they have given you a physical address, an email address, or a phone number. 1, 2, 3. Physical address, email address, phone number. Any of those 3 that someone gives you voluntarily, they become part of your list. So anytime you hear somebody say list, that's what they mean. Often people are saying email, but it also can be a phone number. It also can be a physical address, because you can contact someone through one of those. Yes, a physical address, you can send them a letter. Phone number, you can text them or call them. Email address, you can email them. But you need that contact. Notice that on your favorite social media platforms, none of the platforms give you this information. They have it. They don't give it to you. Why? Because all your followers on social media are not yours. They are theirs. That's their list. That's Instagram's list. That's Clubhouse's list. That's Facebook's list. You need to be building your list. The list is where all the money is. Years ago, if any of you remember the story, before Instagram had Instagram stories, they tried to buy Snapchat. And you remember this. This is probably 2015, 2016. Instagram tried to buy Snapchat, or Facebook rather, tried to buy Snapchat. Facebook bought Instagram. Then they tried to buy Snapchat. They offered Snapchat, I believe it was $3 billion. It's billion with a B, is in billion, is in basketball. They offered Snapchat $3 billion to buy the company. Snapchat said no. Now, and then Instagram, or Facebook rather, they turned around, just cloned Snapchat stories, and they created Instagram stories. So those of you who remember, there was a time there was no such thing as Instagram stories. Now that's where a lot of people use it. But Snapchat is still going, still has an audience. Now, why, if it was so easy for Facebook to just make a copy of Snapchat's stories function, why did they offer $3 billion to buy Snapchat? The reason that they offered $3 billion to buy Snapchat is because Snapchat has a list. They wanted the list that Snapchat had. They did not need their technology. They could easily hire some engineers and say, you see what they got? Make that. Make a copy of that. This was exactly what they did. But what they didn't get, and what they wanted to pay $3 billion for, was the list. They wanted the people. They wanted the connections. They wanted those email addresses, phone numbers, names of the people who use Snapchat, because Snapchat has a very young audience, and Instagram wanted, or Facebook, keep saying Instagram. Facebook wanted that audience, which they were unable to get. Snapchat held on to it. So think about that. Think about having a list that's so valuable that you turned down a $3 billion offer. That's what Snapchat did, because they had that list. So I'm telling you all that to tell you this. You need to be building your list. All right. Any of you who is building a business, or you have a business, you need to be building your list. That is the lifeblood of your business, is the way that you can connect with your audience, even if all the social media platforms went away, or they kicked you off of them. All right. So when people are aware of you, they come into your world and they see your offerings, your courses, your books, your coaching, whatever. And then you do your selling thing. But first they have to know that you're there. All right. So content is your sandbox and awareness tool. It is not your money maker. It is your sandbox. It's the place where people can get to know you. Then they take the next step. That's when you make the money. Okay. So you have to slow down and speed up is the way that I explain it. Products make you money. Content gets them to know you. Then you get them to take the next steps to get to noticing your offers. So don't try to speed people through the process. Take them slowly through the process. Wine and dine your audience. Give them some valuable material so that they know that you're good. Get them to follow you. Give them something that lets them take the next step, which is an easy next step to come into your world. Give you permission to market to them. As we call that permission marketing, which means they give you contact information, email address, physical address, or a phone number so that now they're on your list. Then you tell them about the things. Then you move them to the next step. Then you ask them to get on a call. Then you ask them to fill out a form. Then you sell them the book. Then you get them to buy a ticket to your event, whatever it happens to be. All right. So with all that said, let me recap all 6 points that I share here today. Then we're going to open up the floor. Hope I saved enough time. Case for creating more content. Number one, content makes you findable and discoverable. You need to be creating this so that people can find you. The last thing you want to be is a very good, very talented, highly skilled nobody that nobody knows who you are. If nobody knows who you are, you cannot make money. You cannot sell something to somebody who doesn't know that you exist. Number two, content helps you master your voice. You need to master your voice so you know exactly what you want to talk about, how you want to say it, where you want to say it, and who you are talking to. You also need to know who you're not talking to. I'll call that rejection marketing. We got attraction marketing, where you say things that attract certain people in. We got rejection marketing. You say things that push people away. You want to know who you want in and who you want out. The more you create content, the better you'll get at understanding that. Number three, the right content done in value helps you own a subject. You want to own a topic so that when someone brings up X, they think of you. And when someone brings up you, they must bring up X. What is that for you? And second set of points here. Number one, biggest content mistakes. Number one is inconsistency. Nobody knows who you are because you are not consistent enough. Same way a relationship crumbles because you don't talk to somebody often enough is the same way that your relationship with your audience can crumble because you are not out there enough. They forget that you exist. All right, from one Monday to the next Monday, people forget that you're even there. All right, you need to be putting out content more consistently so that they actually remember you. Number two, your content is timid, bland, and boring. What makes content bland and boring is that you're saying the same thing that everybody else is saying. If we take the last thing you published, took your name off of it, and had somebody else say it and put their name on it and plagiarize you, would anyone in your audience realize that they stole your stuff and put their name on it? It should be that distinct that people know it was written by you or said by you or spoken by you because of your style. That all goes to finding your voice. And number three, you want your content to make you money. Purpose of content is to create awareness and get people to know you so that they can take the next step to get into your world, i.e. onto your list, email address, physical address, phone number. And then you can do your selling thing when you have direct contact with your audience. You don't need to do it through social media. I'm not saying you can't make a sale through social media. It happens. But you're using social media to get people to know you. Then you get them to the next step, which is on your list. Then you do your thing when it comes to selling or whatever you're going to do. So with all that said, 55 minutes straight of speaking. Let me be quiet. I'm going to open up the mic here on Clubhouse. And who has a question, comment, anything they want to add to the topic? Content mastery is what we're talking about here today. Mic's open.
Dre, you said something that really stood out. This is Danette, the strategy lady.
Hey, good morning.
I think about the strategic approach and the mindset piece altogether. Your quote, your disappointment challenge is not a mindset challenge. It's a structural challenge.
Right.
And quite often I find that so many people want to jump past, though, and miss that very important foundational piece. Structure is key as a business owner. Sometimes we hit the floor running and we make a lot of money very fast. And then we find out that now we're hitting that brick wall and we're not growing and getting further than what we thought we should be. Right. And it generally comes back to that key thing you just mentioned. You don't have structure. And if you don't have structure, there's no way you can stay consistent. I truly appreciate you for this. And bet your bottom dollar, I will be quoting you on that with your name. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated, Danette. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, structure creates discipline, not the other way around. So I'm glad you caught that. Who else has anything they want to add or share to the conversation? We are talking about mastering your content mistakes, and why you need to create more content than you think.
Hey Dre, it's Tina. Just want to say love your segment today. And I agree 1,000% with what you just said, because Angeline, she's one of my teammates that supports me so well. The other day she hit me up and she says, Tina, we're going to do a 90-day challenge. And I'm like, It's an email blast, all this stuff. And before I started this, I'm actually on day 5 now. Not to say I was all over the place, but there was structure, but there wasn't structure. And I found I'm doing this every single day, it's like I'm obligated to, hey, you're doing this, and it makes it so much easier. Where before I had a lot of thinking to do. So I agree with you 1,000% with that. Question for you.
Sure.
How do you know if you're posting too much? Could you ever post too much? That's the question.
All right. So the question from Tina is, I'm just repeating this from my live stream audience. How do you know if you are posting too much? And is there a such thing as posting too much? My answer to that question is no, there's no such thing as posting too much. I would say, Tina, is that you post as much as you have something to say. So I talked about this, I think it was last week's segment, might have been a segment before, where I talked about the skill of brevity. Brevity is about getting to the point and saying what you need to say, but not saying much more than that. And understand that brevity is relative. So that means if I have 3 minutes worth of material, then I should speak for 3 minutes and stop talking. But if I have 30 minutes worth of material, I should speak for 30 minutes and stop talking. So if you have a lot to say, if you have an email's worth per day to say to your audience, then you should be sending them an email every single day. And the people who like that will stay on your list. And the people who don't like it, they'll unsubscribe. They'll leave. So this is, again, when I say attraction marketing and rejection marketing, they're actually two sides of the same coin. So I could put something out there and there's a certain audience of people who are going to say, Dre, I love that. I'm glad you said that. I'm going deeper into your world. And there are going to be other people who heard the same thing and say, I hate that. I hate that you said that. I'm unsubscribing. I will never listen to you ever again. And they'll block me. So there are two sides of the same coin, Tina, that you should publish as much as you have something to say. The people who want to hear it and need to hear it will love you for it. And the people who don't like it, they'll leave, which is exactly what you want. Does that answer your question? Tina, you're on mute. I don't know if you're talking. All right, she's not saying anything, so I'm assuming by her silence that was perfect. All right, who else has anything they want to add or share here? We got 1 more minute, time for one more comment before we wrap up.
Hello, Dre. It's Ramona.
Hey, Ramona.
Hi, how are you? I just wanted to definitely just chime in and give you your flowers, your credit, hats off, because that was a phenomenal next level masterclass on content creation, consistency, making sure that you are over delivering and under promising in the area of content, whether you are attracting or rejecting your client avatar, your ideal client avatar, I should say. So I definitely wanted to just say that I loved every minute of it and gained quite a bit of advice, knowledge, and absolutely love everything that I heard. So I just definitely wanted to just mention that. And thank you. And I will yield the mic back.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Ramona, for adding that. And thank you, everyone, for your time and attention here today. We are right at 9:30. I believe Dr. Jeannie is up next. Good morning, Dr. Jeannie. Happy Monday.
Good morning, Dre. Happy Monday to you, and thanks so much. I am convicted by your message, actually. We'll talk about that.
Thank you very much.
What I was going to say today, so thank you.
All right, good stuff. I'm looking forward to it. You got it.
All right, thanks so much. Welcome to Breakfast with Champions. And
all right, everybody on IG, Facebook. If I could take any questions on IG or Facebook, y'all go ahead and share them. We are talking about content creation. What's going on? Johnson over there on Facebook. Appreciate it. Spike No Lee Elias. I'm just shouting some people out on Facebook who engaged. Let me put my text message number in Facebook. Those of you who are on Instagram, hope y'all got some value out of that. That is Breakfast with Champions on Clubhouse, where I have a regular segment every Monday from 8:30 to 9:30. I'll be putting this up on IG, what do they call it? IGTV page on my page. I'll also be putting it on, this will also be on YouTube. So all y'all have, I don't see any comments, anything coming through. Let me see if I had any while I was talking. A lot of people call it that persistence and consistency stuff. Yes, that persistence, consistency thing is a big deal. It's one of the biggest things that, make sure I'm muted over there. Yeah, one of the biggest things that we do here when he said own the subject. Owning a subject is a big thing. Keith Spencer, appreciate you. Who else we got over here? Carrie, Aaliyah. Oh, yeah, I shouted you out at the beginning. So shout out to all y'all who have come through and were watching this. That's correct. Breakfast with Champions on Clubhouse. We're gonna be on Twitter too pretty soon. We're gonna do it on Twitter as well. So those of you who are not on Twitter, Twitter is a little bit different from Instagram, but my Twitter is Dre All Day. Breakfast with Champions is, what's my Breakfast with Champions name? Is same as my Instagram name. My Twitter name is Dre All Day. So we're gonna be moving that on. We're gonna be doing it on Clubhouse, but also pretty soon we'll probably be moving it all over to Twitter. So that'll be coming soon. So y'all stay tuned and y'all work on your games. Have a great Friday, great Monday, and a great week. We out of here.